Okay, it's looking like there's nobody showing up. If you happen to show up, there's a um, message in the chat, and you can go ahead and uh, type your name in. Otherwise, I don't have anybody attending today. So I'm going to go ahead and continue recording, and I'm going to talk about um, the plan and going forward. So in your classroom page on Google Classroom, you have the Zoom link, you have a virtual field trip assignment, and you have the week's plan. In the plan, and this is meant mostly for parents and families, but it does give you an overview of what we're doing and why we're doing it. So the goals for this week are using internet resources to gather information, using technology to communicate to a variety of audiences, and thinking critically to solve puzzles using block coding. So as we talked about last week, you should be getting in at least an hour a week of code.org. That equates into about 15 minutes 4 times a day, or 4 times a week, sorry about that. And you should get through an entire lesson in that amount of time. Under activities for today, on Mondays during your regularly scheduled class time, we will be meeting in Zoom. That would be every Monday for every class. I will have meetings off and on through the week during different classes, and I will post those in Google Classroom the day before. So make sure that you are paying attention to Google Classroom. Check it at least a couple of times a day. I will try to have all of that in there first thing in the morning. That way you do not miss it. Also, as you're working through the lessons, I've really had a tough time deciding how often to go live. So far, my attendance at the actual Zoom meetings is not great. I do have a lot of students coming, but they seem to be the same students with a few kind of rotating in and out. So I do know that you're going to have questions, and a lot of times the same question gets asked multiple times. So what I'm asking you to do is, if you have questions about schoolwork, then I want you to, sorry, I forgot to share my screen. Here we are. This is the lesson plan for the week. I'm asking you to email me your questions. So I will take all of the questions that I get for the week, for the day, I'm sorry, and I will sit down in the evening and I will create a video or an audio clip of me answering those questions, and I will post it to Google Classroom. The reason I decided to do that is so that I'm not kind of sitting around in Google Classroom or in the Zoom waiting for people to come in and ask questions, when a lot of times the people who are coming to the Zooms they don't have any questions. They're fine doing what they need to do. So ask me your questions in email and I will answer them and post in Google Classroom. So that's the big one. And I'll do that every day that I get questions. The next morning you will have answers. Now on to what our assignments are. We are creating a virtual field trip because we can't go anywhere. We're not able to travel. We're not supposed to be out of our homes. I hope you are staying close to home, maybe getting a chance to play outside, trying to stay as far, not in real close proximity to anyone else. So the assignment overview is linked in the lesson plan, and this is really, like I said, mostly for parents and family members or whoever is looking after you, and it's just to get them an idea of what you're working on. So we're creating this virtual field trip, and you need to be aware of 3 things. You need to know, obviously, where you want to go, but you need to know, who are you taking? Who is your audience? Are you taking kids? Are you taking adults? Things like that. You also need to know where you're going and why you're going. Are you going? Is this supposed to be an educational field trip? Is this about learning particular facts or things like that? Is it for fun with some history and facts and things thrown in. Or maybe it's an adventure field trip. Maybe you're doing rock climbing or something and you're talking about different places to do rock climbing. That would be just fine. Remember, you get to pick where you're going. It doesn't matter to me. I want you to realize that you have to have 10 different photographs for your final project. So you need something that's going to have some different parts to it or different places to it. So like a city or a museum. I thought somebody said a stadium. Well, if you're doing a stadium, that's perfectly fine, but you probably are going to talk about, I don't know, locker rooms and special owners boxes, whatever things that go on at that stadium. Okay. You will have to have lots of different pictures and some facts about that. So you get to choose a country, a city, a museum, whatever you want to. So in this first assignment, which you'll notice that it has linked here. Now, those links are just for people to see what you are doing or to refresh your memory if for some reason you're not in your assignment. But when you actually go to complete those documents, I want you to do them in Google Classroom because they're already there with a copy for you. You just have to fill them out and then turn them in. If you open it up here, it's not going to have the information that you need for the actual assignment. All right. So this is just for information. On Wednesday, you're going to start a new assignment, and that's where we're going to talk about photographs. So we're all going to meet on Mondays in our regular class periods, but this week I'm meeting with second period tomorrow, and we're going to record that session, and we're going to talk about the assignment for Wednesday. And then I'll post that in Google Classroom so that everyone else can see it, just like I'll do with any questions that I get. All right. So I think that's pretty much it about this particular document, but I do want to talk about the purpose and audience, this assignment that you're supposed to be completing by the end of the day tomorrow. So the first question is, where do you want to take your field trip to? Just tell wherever it is. If it's a museum, if it's a city, if it's a country, you got to tell us where it's at. I want you to think about why that would be a good place to go on a field trip. It's not because I like ice cream, so I'm going to go to Ben and Jerry's. No, you have to give me something more. Why is that worthy of a field trip? Okay. And then who are you taking on this field trip? Are you taking little kids, kindergarten, third grade? Are you taking middle school kids? Are you taking adults? Are you taking a bunch of artists or a bunch of gamers? Whatever it is, I need you to think about who your field trip is meant for. The reason those questions are important is because it's going to help you when you go to do your final presentation. It needs to fit your audience. If you are taking a trip to a museum and you're just taking middle school students and you're talking about the actual techniques used in the art projects, that would be fine for some of the stuff, but you don't want the whole thing to be about that because you're going to lose your audience. They're not really going to be interested in all that detail, okay? So that's why those things are important, to know why you're taking the field trip and who you are taking. You also want to talk about whether that trip's going to be educational, adventure, fun, or if you want to add another label, you sure can. I think most things will fall under one or a combination of those. So you can just put an X next to it. Hopefully that makes sense to you, but if it doesn't, please email me with your questions, all right? I will expect those to be turned in by the end of the day tomorrow, all right? So back to this document is pretty much finished. Let's see, everything's in there that you need so you can read through it. If you have any questions, please email me. I'm going to go out of my share. All right, so that's pretty much all that I had for today. I cannot stress enough, please be ready to come back to class, be in class on Monday. When you go to class, make sure you remember that you're going to be muted and you're going to have your cameras turned off. If you want to keep your camera turned off, that's perfectly fine. You can mute and unmute as you need to as we talk. And I'm asking you to type your first and last name into the chat box in the Zoom. That way I can keep track of who is actually attending, because we're having some problems getting kids coming to class. Even in the afternoon, this is 8th period and there's no one here. And yesterday I only had one student. So you need to try to make it to class because you normally would be in school. All right. So that is all I have. I look forward to seeing you soon, and I hope you have a wonderful day.